I think they'll be shell shocked after the way that they trialled, and they would have went into this game thinking really positive, and that just really sat them back in their seat. I think it's a bit of a reality check.
This is the Billy Slater Podcast. We've had round one of the NRL, and we saw some great games. We also saw a couple of lopsided fixtures as well. So plenty to talk about following round one of the NRL. We're all here thanks to Tab. Billy, how are you?
Yeah, morning, Salty, and welcome back from the States. Obviously, the journey over to Las Vegas would have been an interesting one. How'd you go over there?
Yeah, it was good. It was really good. Actually, from a footy point of view, enjoyed it. The stadium is amazing. It's a great place. I think it's just going to get bigger and better as the years go on. But I've got to say, being up here in Queensland, it does seem like a lifetime ago, having had the tropical cyclone Alfred, and now still feeling the effects. Plenty of people in Queensland, I'm sure, just would have really enjoyed watching the remainder of round one over the weekend, given what everyone's been going through.
Well, it seems like round one's gone for so long. So much has happened in the space of a week. Obviously, Las Vegas and the two games over there last Sunday. And then all the events with the cyclone in southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales. As you say, people are still feeling the effects of the flooding and those things. Cut off power. So hopefully, many of those southeast Queensland people would have been able to tune in to Channel 9 and watch a bit of footy over the weekend. And hopefully your team's done yourselves proud, and you're happy with their performance, because there were a couple of teams that did dip their toe in round one, and it'd be interesting the response going into round two. But on the flip side, that there were a handful, probably three teams that really impressed, and I'm sure we'll get into all the nitty-gritty stuff and dissect each game, but yeah, there were two in particular that really impressed me on the weekend.
Yeah, we'll get into those in just a moment. But you know what? Just as a general comment, Billy, I'll get your thoughts on this. Round one is always interesting, isn't it? The reaction following round one, where all of a sudden people are talking about coaches under pressure. This team's going to win the wooden spoon. This team is a certainty for the premiership. We can jump to a lot of conclusions sometimes following just a sample of one match.
We're very reactive, aren't we, in this game? And if you look at the trial form, in particular the Melbourne Storm playing the Cowboys in the final trial, and both had pretty full-strength teams. Melbourne had a couple of players out, but the Cowboys were really dominant in that trial. And the Melbourne Storm were probably a little bit disappointing. And then you go into round one and it just flipped on its head really quick. So it can change quite quick, and it is a long season. The grand final's not for 7 months. That's a long season. So consistency is going to play a big factor of putting yourself in a position to fight for the premiership at the end of the day. But getting off to a good start just builds that confidence early.
Yeah, it certainly does, particularly if you didn't play finals last year and then you've got a new coach. We're talking about the Brisbane Broncos. They were the first team that we saw on the weekend, on Thursday night against the Roosters. Are they one of those three standout sides from your point of view from the weekend, Billy?
Well, they were the standout side until the last couple of days. They were really impressive. Obviously on the back of what happened last year. They were quite disappointing last year, and I'm sure they would say themselves that they underachieved. But it just looks like they have a change of mindset going into the game. It's pretty obvious that they're focusing on the defensive side of the game. The points will come. They scored 50 points without even thinking about the attacking side of the game. It's such an attacking, talented side that they do have, the Broncos. But I think they're on the right track. You've got to be careful. You can't get carried away with it. I think it was a little bit to do with the inexperience of the Roosters, and to be honest, I think the Roosters were one of those teams that were always going to, I wouldn't say rebuild, but go through a transition where they lost a lot of experience at the end of last year. So it's going to take a little bit of time to build combinations. It's going to take a little bit of time for those young players to develop into consistent first graders. and they came up against a side that was looking to make a statement and prove a point. And the Broncos look like they're in for a good season. They're certainly showing some good signs at the moment, but it is only round one, and consistency was a factor last year. So that'll be the challenge for them this year.
Just looking ahead, and I know we'll look at round two in later on in the podcast, but Brisbane away to Canberra this Saturday night. When you talk about consistency, this is the sort of game they've got to get up for again now, isn't it? Heading to the nation's capitals. They're starting their season with back-to-back away games, and Canberra, as we know a week ago, were very good in Vegas.
Yep, Broncos will want to bring their physical side of their game. They'll need to bring that physical side of the game, and I think if Ricky Stuart had it his way, he would have picked this matchup, because coming back from Vegas, his team's just had a really strong victory over the Warriors over in Vegas for round one, and they were one team that didn't dip their toe in, the Raiders. They were up for the physical battle, and they won that physical battle, and essentially that's what won them the game. So the Broncos, coming up against the Broncos, of putting 50 points on the Roosters, I think that's the perfect scenario for Ricky Stuart. He'll have his team primed. It's their first home game down there in the nation's capital, and the Broncos will certainly get more of a physical game this week than they did last week, and that'll be a challenge for them. And it's interesting. How do you back up your performances, and what sort of mindset are you going to take into these sort of games? So that's what we're all looking at for round two. Yeah,
we'll focus on round two a little bit later on. You mentioned the Roosters, and they do have a couple of players that are out at the moment. Sam Walker, long-term injury, along with Brandon Smith as well. Hopefully they'll get a couple of forwards back sooner rather than later. The Butcher boys as well. They'll miss Victor Radley, Spencer Leniu not far away. But one of those players just mentioned, Brandon Smith, on his way out of Bondi, and looks like Wayne is interested in getting Brandon Smith over to the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, it must be a really interesting feeling preparing for a season, obviously coming off the back of a knee reconstruction, and that's a challenge in itself, but mentally preparing for a season to play for a club that has told you that they don't want you. That must be a really tough situation, for a player. And Brandon Smith's going through that. So not only is he trying to get over his injury and get back to play for the Roosters, he's potentially looking for another club for next year. So, yeah, I think the sooner that gets sorted, it just helps with the mindset of just playing footy. And when's Brandon back? He mid-year?
Yeah,
June, July?
July, I'd say. Late June, early July, yeah.
Yeah, and he's one player that they could really do with at the moment. Obviously signing Reece Robson for next year. The writing's on the wall there for Brandon, and it wouldn't surprise me if a club came in and offered the Roosters some sort of compensation for Brandon this year, because I don't know where the Roosters are going to be at in July, and they might want to free up a little bit of cap space to spend some money for their future, and Brandon Smith could be a handy pickup towards the back end of this year for a team that's fighting for a top 8 spot or potentially fighting for a premiership. Brandon Smith's already a premiership player. He knows how to get it done at that time of the year, and for him to pop into a team that's fighting for a premiership would be a huge boost.
Yeah, absolutely. So watch this space as far as Brandon Smith is concerned. We touched on the Rabbitohs there as his likely destination for 2026. South had a narrow win over the Dolphins on Friday night at CommBank Stadium. That was a rearranged match. It turned out being a home game for the Bunnies. What did you make of that encounter, and just your takeaway from both sides?
Yeah, I thought they both fought really hard. I thought both teams were in the contest, and it could have went either way. Wayne Bennett's done a great job. Obviously, the big talking point around South Sydney over the last few weeks is the season-ending injury to Cam Murray, and obviously Latrell Mitchell being out for the next couple of months as well. And I think they've done a great job. It was great to see Jai Arrow back on the field, fully fit. He played a whole heap of last year with a busted shoulder, and it was a courageous effort from him. Young Jai Gray did a great job at the back. Cody Walker was exceptional. I think their halfback Jamie Humphries, in only, I think it was his fourth game or something like that. He hasn't played many first-grade games, but controlled the kicking, just freed Cody Walker up enough to allow him to go and play his game, and they held on for a tight victory. So I think both teams in this match can hold their heads up high. Obviously, the Dolphins had a lot on their mind. The Cyclone hovering off, their hometown of Redcliffe and their families pretty much when they were playing. So they were without a few of their stars that decided to stay home, and I think they can hold their head up high with the performance they put in with everything that was going on.
Yeah, absolutely. The game prior to that saw a tight contest between the Knights and the West Tigers. The Knights prevailing, again, just by the 2 points in the end in a low-scoring encounter. What was your takeaway from this one?
Well, the Knights come away with the 2 points. So at the end of the day, that's what's going to show. But I think Benji Marshall will take a lot of positive stuff out of this match. I think there's a bit to work on for that. There was no Api Coruscant, so he makes a huge difference through the middle of the field. And at the end of the day, I think Kalen Ponga was probably the difference. Fletcher Sharp was great. He's played his first NRL game at 5'8". He looks like, the more time he spends in that position, I think the better he's going to get. He's such an electric runner of the footy and just has great balance. Scored a try under the post. There was only a couple of tries scored from each team, and Fletcher was one of those guys. And Greg Marju scored the match winner. That he was really strong as well. So it was probably a match for where these two teams sat. The pleasing thing for both coaches that they defended to a standard that kept the scoreline low. So. There's a bit to work with for both teams, and I'm sure that they're both looking at the positive side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Billy, on Saturday, what about the site at Cogra? Just a full house. It was great. Actually, both games on Saturday were terrific at Brookie as well. Later on, we'll get to Manly shortly. Good game of footy too, wasn't it, between the Dragons and the Bulldogs?
Yeah, it was a tight game in the end. It was the Bulldogs that skipped away with it. I think they were the class team of the day. And, the one thing that I was looking for from the Bulldogs is what they did last year. It was hard. It's a hard game to play when you're consistent at all the effort areas of the game. And that's what got them the tag of the best defensive team in the competition. That's what got them in the top four, and that's what got them to play finals last year. It was everyone working extremely hard at the little things of the game. And a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that they had the biggest challenge to back that up this year. So that's what I was watching from the Bulldogs, and I saw no signs of that going backwards. So the Bulldogs are in good shape. They look nice and fit. I thought the injection of two bench players was a great play from Cameron Ciraldo. First one was Kurt Mann. I think he injected a whole heap of creativity in attack. He set up a couple of tries, a great little defender through the middle of the field, and just shows that value of that small forward that has a bit of ball playing ability. So I thought Kurt Mann was great, and the other guy, which quite possibly could have been the player of the match, was Satili Tupanua. I thought he was outstanding as well, and by all reports, he hasn't trained a whole heap in the preseason. He's had hamstring issues, and then came in the last week straight into the team, and boy, didn't he make a difference off the bench. So picked up a couple of tries, but he was damaging every time he got the ball. He was physical. And the one thing that you want from a bench player is you want to know they're out there when they get on the field, and he certainly did that. Yeah,
that's for sure. I thought he was brilliant coming off the bench. What about another player, and I know Gus is a big fan of his, Harry Hayes. And these are the sort of guys, aren't they, Billy, that unheralded, that just come into that Bulldogs team to do a job. Yeah, they've recruited the stars and the like, but following on from what you said there about what they did so well last year, and it was on the back of these guys who emerged into the team, and Harry is proving to be a very important player in that Doggies forward pack.
Yeah, we call them unsung heroes, don't we? Like they're the players, and I've played with a whole heap of players like Harry Hayes and Max King and these sort of guys that just go about their business. They don't get the the accolades and those sort of things that some of the other players get, but they're such an integral part of the team. And when you play the game of rugby league, it's a team game. And if you don't have 17 contributors, it's really hard to perform and really hard to succeed. So when you've got guys like that in your team, that go out and do all the hard little things in and around the play of the ball, and sometimes they go unnoticed to the general public, but they're so valuable to the team. So I'm sure those players, the Harry Hayeses, the Kurt Manns, the Max Kings, they will be getting celebrated on days like today and tomorrow when they're going through their review at Belmore. They'll be sitting down and they'll be celebrating all the efforts of those players, because that's essentially what builds the foundation of your footy game. And then you've got your class on top of that, which I'm sure will get touched on as well, but probably not as much as the effort stuff.
Yeah, no, terrific effort. Now, speaking of effort, speaking of class, the later game on Saturday, Manly. Billy, take it away. What did you think of the Sea Eagles?
Yeah, you could probably throw a few other words in there. You've got power, you've got athleticism, but it was all pulled together by footy smarts. They were outstanding. They were unbelievable, the Manly Sea Eagles. I actually couldn't believe what I was watching, and coming off, they played a team that were in form. The Cowboys were really in form, and I'm sure the Cowboys would be sitting there going, I wish we had that chance again to start again. They didn't start as physical. They didn't start as upbeat. I don't know whether they just thought it was going to happen, but it's a real check for the Cowboys. But Manly were so impressive. So impressive. They've got size, they've got power, they've got speed, but then they had this footy structure, and their key players used their ammunition, so to speak, so well that it was just unstoppable from the Cowboys, and they were ultra impressive.
You look at DCE, the Trebojeviches. Well, Tom was great, but what about the impact early of Ben Trebojevic?
Yeah.
It was tremendous.
Yeah, it looks like he's had a great preseason. Look, pretty much every player with a Manly jersey on was great. I thought Lehigh Hopewadi was exceptional. I don't think I've seen him play a bad game, Lehigh. He's such a consistent player. But yeah, Ben looks like, and he's the youngest of the Trebojevic boys, so he's naturally going to develop and improve his skills. Look, Tom was the best player in the game on the weekend, so and that's probably to his standard. Like, that's how good Tom Trebojevic is. He played to his standard, and he was the best player in the game. Like, he was unbelievable. And when your team's going so well like that, and you're playing in such a good structure, there is just so much space for a player like Tom, because he's playing a position where he's always on the footy, and he has a real want to be in the game. He would have woke up on Sunday morning feeling really good. Obviously got through the game injury-free, looks nice and healthy. It's great to see players like Tom Trebojevic play the style that he plays after a lot of the injuries that he's gone through as well.
Billy, they look like they're having fun. And it's easy to say that when they're skipping away to a lead, but it was from the outset.
Absolutely.
From early on.
It was a real point that I saw early on as well, Salty, and you could see it from a guy that's 36 years old. Daly Cherry Evans. He looked like he was having a ball, and it was within the opening 5 minutes. Enjoyment is such a key thing, and just in life in general. If you're having fun and you're enjoying yourself and you want to be in that environment, well, that's a great start. That's a great start to want to work hard and put in as much as you can. If you're not having fun, well, it's probably a hard place to really put in and get the best out of yourself. So maybe we need to have a bit more fun, Salty.
We have fun. How good.
We have fun where we...
maybe
some of the characters we work with, we have fun. Don't worry about that.
Well, there's a bloke who lives in Townsville that might want to just bring the fun down a little bit occasionally. Hello, JT.
No way. Keep going, John.
No, exactly. We love it. Mate, we're talking about unheralded players. Just one final one on Manly. that they've got a number of them in their forward pack, and I'll tell you one guy who made an impression off the bench, easy to do so, I suppose, when your team is on fire, is Ethan Bullymore. But to be fair, he's been doing it now for a long time, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's a big guy, but he's got great leg speed, and playing off the back of the forward pack that Manly have. I thought Ola Kawatu was outstanding as well. Real point of difference, but he's got that size. Paseka, Taukiaho, nice pickup, and then Bullymore coming off the bench with that leg speed that he has. They're a real team, and they're playing to their strengths at the moment. So. They're going to take some stopping. I'm sure they'll be trying to put a lid on it. Anthony Seibold will be trying to put a lid on what happened on the weekend, because that was an impressive victory, and it is only round one, but you can't help but get excited.
That's for sure. Now, I know, as we say, it's only round one, but talking about hitting the ground running, Melbourne Storm yesterday, you were there at Amy Park and saw it firsthand. Wow, that was relentless in the first half.
Yeah, they were okay.
Just keeping a lid on things.
Yeah. And look, it's a little bit like Manly. That they were really impressive with the structure of their game, and they were playing so fast in the first half. The second half, a little bit flat, but the first half was the damage, and it was around their stars, their key position players. Pappenhausen was great. I thought he was the best player on the field in the first half. Munster was close behind him. But then Harry Grant and the reigning Dally M winner, Jerome Hughes, like the way that they combined and the way that they set up their structure of their game, and then they bring their teammates into the game. Jack Howarth was great. They bring their centres, Nick Meaney's the other centre, and their two powerful back rowers in Eli Katoa and Sean Bloor. They just have a great ability to bring everyone into the game. They know their game so well, and off the back of a disappointment in the grand final, they've started off their 2025 campaign in great style, and they've got the bye in round two. Interesting. Not an ideal scenario off the back of round one, but it's what they've been dealt, and I suppose if you're going to have a bye, you want to be going into a bye beating a team by 50 odd points.
Yeah, they were tremendous, and I suppose we didn't focus too much when we were talking about Manly on the Cowboys. So, do you put a question here to you, which probably relatable to the Cowboys and the Eels after yesterday? Is that just a case of you move on as quickly as you can, and what's your reaction there if you're Todd Payten in North Queensland following Saturday night, and then yesterday with Jason Ryles and the loss for the Eels?
I think they're in slightly different situations.
Yep.
I think Jason Ryles will be looking at a long-term approach with the Eels. He's not there to fix things in 1 week. I think there's a reason why there's a change of coach, and that is that the club sees the team needing to go in a different direction. And when you go in a different direction, it takes a bit of time to implicate all those things you want to bring into the team. So, being without their halfback and their controller, that certainly will help when he comes back. But they just need to start from the bottom up. They need to start with their foundation of their footy. And there were some positive signs in the second half for Parramatta, but yeah, it was a tough initiation for Jason. For the Cowboys, I think they'll be shell-shocked after the way that they trialled, and they would have went into this game thinking really positive, and that just really sat them back in their seat. I think it's a bit of a reality check for the Cowboys. And listening to Todd Payten after the game, he said he posed a question to his team that he didn't want an answer right away. He wanted them to think about it. So I don't think that question will have anything to do with their talent. I don't think that question will have anything to do with the ability they have in the game. It'll be more around the want and commitment to the game, and how much you're willing to put in to sacrifice and commit to that tough side of the game, because that's where that's where they got blown away. If you put into the tough side and the commitment side of the game, that overshadows a whole heap of talent, and you can get away with not having the top end talent. But if you're not there and you don't have that top end talent, even if you do, if you're not committed to that tough side of the game, you'll get blown away pretty quick in the game at the moment, because there's too many star players and the game's too fast now to just hold on if you're not committing to that tough side of the game.
All right, well, they got a chance to respond this week against the Sharks. We'll get to round 2 in just a moment. Plenty to come. This is the Billy Slater Podcast, and it's all thanks to Tab. All right, time now, Billy, for the Billy M Medal, Best Player and Best Team from each week. We do it thanks to Tab. Boy, this is a tough one for you, Billy. Best Team of the week.
Well, I'm taking into consideration the two teams over in Vegas, and off the back of Vegas, we had a couple of players that we nominated. There was no awards last week, but we nominated Xavier Savage for the Raiders and also Liam Martin. I thought Liam Martin was great for the Penrith Panthers. So they're two nominations for the Player of the Week, but the Team of the Week is going to go to the Manly Seagulls. Obviously, I thought the Broncos were great. I thought Melbourne were great. But I just think the way that Manly showed up, both physically, athletically, and then on top of that, the style that they played and the freedom that they played with, it was so good to watch. And look, you don't tag premiers from one game, but boy, it was hard not to get excited about what Manly are going to do this year. So, and Brookvale was already sold out on the weekend. You'd imagine every game from here on in, if they play that style of footy, you won't be able to get a ticket to Brookvale this year. So the Manly Seagulls, they get the Team of the Week for the first game of the year.
Okay, what about the Best Player? Bearing in mind, you mentioned, as you said, Xavier Savage and Liam Martin from a week ago, but a few players put their hand up over the course of the last few days.
They certainly did. I thought the two props for the Broncos were exceptional. Payne Haas, Pat Carrigan. Ben Hunt played a great role in that victory as well. Pappenhausen for Melbourne. Who else was there? I thought Kalen was the difference in that game against the Tigers. But the Player of the Week comes from the Team of the Week, and that's the Manly Seagulls, and none other than their star fullback, Tom Trbojevic. He was super. Obviously, they played a great team-style game, but when the team gets so much freedom and Tom's in the team, Tom just reaps the rewards. And I thought he was the best player over round 1.
All right, so that is the Billy M Medal. Thanks to Tab. The NRL season is here for the best time in sport. Tab has the best app in sport. Tab, we're on.
What's gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Now, a few interesting listener questions have come through, Billy, this week. This one's from Alice. Hi, mate. Where do you sit on moving the Dolphins Bunnies games? Do you think they should have just postponed it?
Oh, that's an interesting question, and I think everyone's probably got different opinions from it. I think in hindsight, I think they made the right decision. I think to play the game. We didn't obviously know what Cyclone Alfred was going to do and how hard it was going to hit. It probably hit on the more lenient side than the more ferocious side that it could have hit. But I think all in all, we're sitting in a position where they played a game. Obviously, the Dolphins didn't win, and they had a few sit out. So there's a few considerations there that it could have been postponed. But I think the right decision was made. And we've seen before with the game and Peter V'landys, the game pushes forward whenever it can. And in hindsight, I think it's the right thing. It's the right move. And the Broncos played a game. They had to overcome some obstacles to get down to Sydney and get back, and so did the Dolphins. And I do feel for the Dolphins to a certain extent because of the situation, and I don't know what I would have done in that situation, but the game went ahead. Both teams had their chance to win the game and get the 2 points, and I think the right decision was made.
All right, this one from Paul. He says, "Hey, Billy, do you think it was more a poor Roosters performance or great Broncos performance on Thursday? What should we look into more?"
Well, firstly, it was a great Broncos performance. Let's make that statement. It was a great Broncos performance, and that's first and foremost because they still had to play their part. They still had to do it. And to be honest, the first 10 minutes was a bit of an arm wrestle. The Roosters scored first. Young Robert Toya, he broke the line in his own half and set up Dominique Young. So the Broncos were on the back foot in the opening 5-10 minutes, and there was a bit of an arm wrestle there, and then the class of the Broncos prevailed. I think the Broncos, have certainly got some traits to their game that they've rectified from last year, in particular around their defence. So it was a great Broncos performance, but let's put it into perspective. The Roosters would be really disappointed with parts of their game, and they just looked like they got pulled apart way too easy. The Broncos, I'm not sure who they play this week. Who do they play this week?
Yeah,
they got the Raiders.
Raiders away. Yeah.
It's going to be a tougher test up against the Raiders, and then when they come up against the Melbourne Storms and the Penrith Panthers, we'll get a real good gauge of where the Broncos are at. But you can't take anything away from that performance that they put in round one.
All right, thanks for that one, Paul. This one comes through from Amy. After Jamie Humphrey's performance on Friday, do you think Lewis Dodd struggles to make the starting side? He, of course, is out suspended at the moment, got suspended in the Charity Shield. So what do you make of Amy's question there?
Is he available this week?
I'm pretty certain he's got another week.
Another week.
Yeah.
Well, that's probably good for Lewis Dodd because I wouldn't be changing Jamie Humphreys right now. Off the back of what he did on the weekend and the way that the team performed, there's no merit to change that right now. And I think most coaches, and I'm sure Wayne Bennett's the same. If someone's there and they're doing a good job for the team and there's no reason to change it, well, the other player's got to earn it. And unfortunately, when you do get suspended or you do get injured, you give that opportunity up to someone to take that opportunity. And Jamie Humphreys has certainly done that. I thought he was great defensively. He had a great kicking game, and he didn't overplay his hand. He allowed the other stars to shine in his team, and he keeps the jersey as long as they're doing the job.
Actually, he is eligible to come back this week, Lewis Dodd. It was a one-game.
There you go. Well, that'll be interesting because he was a big signing from over in England and probably didn't live up to the expectation in the trials, but it'll be interesting which way Wayne Bennett goes. I'd be surprised if he changes it.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll find out for Team List Tuesday. By the way, good question again, Amy. And if you have any questions you'd like to send in, the email address is billyslaterpodcast@9.com.au. billyslaterpodcast@9.com.au. Round 2 gets underway on Thursday night. It's the Dolphins are in action. It's an away game for them. The Knights at home looking to build on their first up win over the West Tigers. Interesting matchup, this one, Billy.
Yeah, it certainly is. And off obviously round one, and looking forward to the teams that probably didn't play as to their expectation. The Warriors. Do we get a bounce back from the Warriors? Do we get a bounce back from the Cowboys and the Eels? And then those three teams that really impressed. The Storm, the Manly Sea Eagles, and the Broncos. How do they back up their round one performance? Because they're all sitting there in their review and they're all training this week and they're all thinking, okay, it means nothing if we don't go out and put that same sort of effort, put that same sort of performance in. So it all starts with the Knights and the Dolphins on Thursday night. I'll be there at McDonald Jones Stadium in Newcastle. And the other one is the Eels and the Tigers. Sunday afternoon footy, both coming off a loss. One of those teams will kickstart their season with the 2 points. So who's it going to be? Is it going to be the home team or is it going to be the Tigers who went close to the Knights last week?
Yeah, that's our game on 9 this Sunday afternoon. That will be a ripper. It's always an entertaining clash, that one as well. Eels v Tigers. There's the late game as well. The Titans round 1 bye, and then they're playing their first game in the last game of round 2. So they've had to wait a while. It'll be interesting to see how Desi's Titans go against the Bulldogs at Belmore on Sunday evening.
Yeah, how do you reckon their patience has been?
Me.
It's hard enough playing the last game in round 1, and round 1 went for over a week. You got to remember. So for the Titans to play the last game, that's 2 weeks after some of the other teams have played their first game of the season. That's a tough ask to sit there after a long preseason to go and wait that long. But they play the Bulldogs, and the Bulldogs are not an easy team to beat. Although the Titans were really impressive in their last trial, they've got some class in their key positions. There's still a question mark over the game management side of their key positions and how that's going to hold up under pressure. But boy, with the footy in hand, they can score some points. So if it goes to hand, that'll be a great matchup. Really looking forward to seeing how the Titans go this year.
And we've seen some returns to the NRL already in round 1 with the likes of Tom Gilbert, for instance. But looking forward to seeing Tino back in the NRL next week. Big Tino for Suamela Awi missing all of last year, but great to have him back, Billy.
Yeah, and if the 40 minutes of trials that he played was anything to go by, he's in for one hell of a season. He looks really fit. Looked like he had a real desire to get involved in the game as well. He doesn't look like he's skipped a beat at all. He's had a couple of stints over in America, so he's taken his time, and he looks ready to go, Tino.
So much to look forward to, Billy, for round 2 of the NRL. It'll be on us very quickly on Thursday night, as you said, that game in Newcastle with the Knights up against the Dolphins. We love round 1. We're really back in the swing of things now, Billy, and we'll be back for another episode of the Billy Slater Podcast next Monday.
She's on again. Here we go.
Absolutely. Have a great week, Billy. Enjoy your trip to Newcastle.
Thanks, Aldi.
There it is, Billy Slater. I'm Peter Psaltis. This has been the Billy Slater Podcast. Thanks to Tab.